Welcome to Off the Shelf, Conversations with Authors. I'm Martha Kofod, and our guest today is Dina Silver. Welcome, Dina.
Thank you for having me.
And you're a first novelist? You've just published your first novel?
I did. One Pink Line is my debut novel. Interestingly enough, it's not the first novel that I've written, but it's the first one that I went ahead and published. I have another one that I wrote and finished 2 years ago that I'm going to hopefully publish this spring, early summer.
What is your process in becoming a published author?
Well, when I finished my first book a few years ago, I went the traditional route, started right away looking for a literary agent, and found one about 9 months after I started. I was with her for about a year, and she tried to sell my first book to traditional publishing houses. And within that time, a lot changed in the book industry. Borders closed, ebooks were skyrocketing, and she seemed to be having a difficult time with selling my book to traditional publishers. Also within that time, I started researching self-publishing and read many, many stories about success stories about self-published authors and traditional publishing houses who were looking to self-published authors and bringing them on as clients, and even literary agents who were finding new writers who started out being self-published. So when my contract was up with my agent, I said to her I was going to try the self-publishing route, and we parted amicably. And in November, I started the process last summer and self-published One Pink Line through a company called Create Space, and the experience was amazing, really rewarding. It hit the market in November, and I couldn't be happier. It's doing great. It's been a great experience, yeah.
Tell me a little bit about this self-publishing. You do have a publisher, essentially.
It is published by a company called Create Space, which is actually a subsidiary of Amazon, but I didn't know that when I first started with them. But my book is available on Barnes & Noble and on iBook and other things, not just on Amazon. But the print copies are available only through Amazon and through this company called Create Space. And I'm very cyber focused, I'm very ebook focused, as is most of the world right now.
Certainly your generation.
Yeah, definitely. So I have just kind of kept my efforts online and in that arena right now. I feel that's where I'm going to be most successful with it. So I haven't taken it to the bookstores yet, because so far I've been pretty happy with the online sales. Not to knock the bookstores, I love a bookstore, and I love holding a book and turning pages, even though I am a Kindle owner. But for me, and I think for many other self-published authors, our path to success is online right now initially.
So when you have written your novel, did you write it from start to finish, or did it take you a while to do it?
This one took me about 4 months to write, and I did write it from start to finish, so to speak. I wrote it kind of in the order of the events that happen in the story, but I ended up switching chapters around and changing things around during the editing process, which took me much longer than actually writing it, which I found with my other book too. I wrote it pretty quickly, but it's taken me a long time to get it right.
The construction of One Pink Line consists of flashbacks, and is that how you accomplished it, with an outline?
I did not write an outline for One Pink Line. It's told it seems like it might be flashbacks, but really it's told from two different perspectives. So, and it's almost more of flash forwards in a way, because it's about a young woman who becomes unexpectedly pregnant, and then the story is told by her and her journey, and then the story also flip-flops between being told by her daughter, and as her daughter grows up and kind of learns about how she came to the world and her past and her parents and family and things like that.
Well, it apparently was very well received. You hit the bestseller list almost immediately. How did that happen?
I did. Well, that happened because I made it happen, basically. I did a lot of research on Amazon ranking when I first started, and it's important because if your book is ranked well on Amazon, a lot of people will see it. People just searching, browsing, maybe not necessarily looking for my book specifically, but people who are just browsing fiction titles, browsing contemporary fiction, looking for a good read. So when it first came out, I sent an email out to everyone I know, or even sort of know, begging them to purchase the book if they would consider buying it or reading it at any point. If they would buy it that day, I was
That's good
very
merchandising.
appreciative. Yeah, so I manipulated it a little bit on my own, but it shot to number 4, right underneath James Patterson and John Grisham, 2 of my all-time favorites.
What a thrill.
Yes, so I took many pictures of my computer screen with my book right there up with theirs, and you know, it's working its way back up. It's slipped a little, but it's getting back up there. Maybe it's not number 4 yet, but
Well, you only have so many friends, and so
that's right. Yes, thankfully, the book is still selling, and not just to friends
But
anymore.
there have been a lot of reviews of it.
Yes, there have been a lot of really great reviews. I feel really, really fortunate. The story really seems to resonate with a lot of people, and it's been really well received. So.
And it was inspired by a true story.
Yes, it was inspired by a true story of a friend of mine, and she and I were having a conversation one day, and she just sort of opened up to me about herself and the history of her little family, and it just turned out to be a really great love story, and I'm a sucker for a great love story. And I said almost immediately to her, would you let me write a book about this? And she said, sure. So the book is fiction. There's a lot of, you know, I've made the story my own, but it's inspired by a really great person.
Now, you mentioned a previous book which you haven't published. Is there a reason for that?
Well, the first novel that I wrote, it's called Catfight, with a K. My protagonist's name is Kat, and she, I wrote this a few years ago. I think I finished it in December of 2009. And in that time, I found an agent, and I was under contract with her, and she was trying to sell Catfight to publishers. And within those couple years, I wrote One Pink Line, and I ended up just liking it better. I was happier with it at the time, and I thought, plus it wasn't under contract with anybody, and I thought, well, I'm gonna just try doing this one on my own. I'm a bit of a control freak, and I like to be involved with every aspect of everything, especially if it's something so personal and has to do with me and my work. So I went the self-publishing route with One Pink Line, and I've been really happy with it.
So this forthcoming novel that
Yes.
is coming out in June?
Catfight is loosely based on how I met my husband, but very loosely. And it's another love story about a young girl, and more of a love triangle, more of a romantic comedy, I think, than One Pink Line. Just more of a fun read.
So, did you have a mentor? What led you to
Well,
become
I
a writer?
have been a writer for about 15 years, working in advertising as a copywriter. I've written mostly for websites and brochures and things like that. not really long form, mostly headlines and product descriptions. But I've always wanted to expand my writing into more creative venues. I initially wanted to write Catfight as a screenplay, and I hope to do that one day. But I had a friend of mine tell me when I first started it, and I told her I wanted to write a screenplay, she said, you have a better opportunity, a better chance of getting it published or made into a book than you do a movie. So I said, you're probably right. And I wrote a novel and had a great time doing it and felt that I really found my niche. It was not that difficult for me to write once I started. I loved it. I loved the process. I love writing dialogue. And I was really happy once it was done. I felt accomplished.
Good. Did you have an editor?
I did. I hired...
Self-published?
Yes, I hired a freelance editor, just a local person, and I also gave copies to my mom, a couple friends who I know who are really great readers who love to read a lot, just to edit for content. Just, do you care about these characters? Is this interesting to you? Do you want to know do you care about what happens to them at the end? I was just wanting that type of feedback as well, because it's important.
Yeah. You have suggested questions for study. Have any book clubs contacted you?
Yeah, they have. I've been to a few book clubs. I actually have 2 next week also. And it's really fun to sit with a group of people who've read the book, and especially if they like it, to hear what they liked about it, scenes that they liked, characters that they liked, how they related to different people, places, things. It takes place, the book opens in 1987 in suburban Chicago. I grew up here, and so there's a lot of fun local landmarks and things, and then part of it takes place at Purdue University, where I also attended.
Do you conduct these book clubs when you appear, or are you just the guest author? I shouldn't say just the guest author.
Yeah, I'm really more of a guest so far. Nobody's looked to me to lead, thankfully. But I do end up talking most of the time and coming home exhausted from just trying to talk for 2 hours. But it's fine.
That's a challenge, I know.
Yeah.
You mentioned Purdue, and
Yes.
that's your university.
Yes.
And what was your major there?
I studied mass communications and journalism, and with a minor in art and design back in the day when there were no design programs or on computers or anything.
So you had a natural background then.
Yeah.
Did you do anything when you were at Purdue that drew attention to you?
I didn't. Positive attention? No, I'm just kidding. I did not do any writing other than what was required of me in college.
There are writers' clubs. Have you ever participated in a writers' club?
I have not participated in a writers' club, but I've talked to a couple people about joining writers' clubs. I'm not sure my personality would gel in a writers' club. I don't know. I could be wrong. But whereas I do really like getting feedback and hearing what people think of my work, I feel like I get it all done pretty quickly. I don't really struggle. I haven't so far struggled over time with the writing, and so I don't know how I would do in a writer's club.
Are you a disciplined writer? Do you have a special area or a special time when you write?
Well, I have one child, and he's in 3rd grade, so he's in school all day. So I'm pretty fortunate, that I get to have the time during the day to write. I don't leave my house or go anywhere special to do the writing. I'm more comfortable at home. And I'm disciplined when I am eager to get it done. And when I have the ideas in my head readily available, I could sit there for hours and not even realize it. So,
Do you have any opportunity to encourage other people to write?
I hope so. I've had, since I've published the book, I've had so many people come to me and say, I've always wanted to write a book, or I wrote half a book and I can't finish it. I have an idea for a book. So I've had a lot of people ask me to chat with them, talk to them, sit with them, and hear their ideas, or just kind of talk about how I ended up getting my book
So are
published.
you becoming a bit of a mentor yourself then?
I don't know. I might.
Yeah.
We'll see.
You'd be a natural for being a visitor in your child's class and encouraging them, telling them about writers?
Yes. My son seems to be really proud of me for writing a book.
I'm sure he is.
He took it to school and went on the computer and went online and showed everyone my website. Yes, he's liking it. They're only in 3rd grade, so I don't know if they want to talk to me yet. But I did have the opportunity to talk to some Highland Park High School seniors. I was a guest at a creative writing class there just
very
a
good.
week ago, and that was really fun. They had all read the book, and it was just a really great conversation, a wonderful Q&A with them, not only about the story and about the book, but about the writing process and the publishing process and the book industry. And teenagers are very insightful.
Oh, that's wonderful.
I had a really great time getting some information from them and just hearing what they had to say. And, they have their own point of view on things, and it's always interesting.
Very good. Tell me some of the authors that you read as a young person growing up and inspired you.
I was a huge fan of Judy Blume, and I still am. She was such a real pioneer in so many ways, and she's still writing, and I'm still a fan of hers. I follow her on Facebook and Twitter, and she still has a great sense of humor and a sense of pop culture and people. One of my favorite books of all time is Pride and Prejudice. I've not read every Jane Austen novel, but I love that one. I've loved every movie, TV remake of it. It's just one of the best love stories out there, and I am a huge fan. I also loved Bridget Jones's Diary when it first came out, and I still love it. It's one of those books. It's so easy to read, and I laugh hysterically every time. It's just such a feel-good, funny book. But I also love James Patterson. I love a good murder mystery. So my tastes are kind of all over the board. But right now I am reading the Hunger Games trilogy, which it's very popular. I like to read what's popular. The movie's coming out next month, and it's a really interesting book. I'm really liking it. I read the first one, it's called The Hunger Games, and the second one, called Catching Fire, is on my Kindle right now, waiting for me at home.
So the conclusion there is that you must be a very good reader to be a good writer.
That's what they say.
I think so.
That's what they say. Yeah. In fact, you won't tire of hearing that or reading that if you're looking into writing.
That's true. Dina, are there any current authors who have written something that would help you as a writer or encourage you as a writer?
Yes, oddly enough, Stephen King wrote a book, I don't remember the year he wrote it, but it's called On Writing, and it's nonfiction, and it's the first half of the book is semi-autobiographical. It's more of an autobiography, not semi-autobiographical, but it's an autobiography of him talking about his life, his youth, and how he transitioned into writing and his love of writing. And the second half are tips from him on writing and what helped him in his journey. I have never read a Stephen King book, but I love the adaptations, his movie adaptations. So this was my first Stephen King book that I read, and I loved it. When I did a lot of research on writing and book publishing, I saw a bunch of different authors who suggested to debut authors like myself to read this book. And so I had bought it, and it sat on my shelf for 3 years, and I finally picked it up this past holiday. And I would recommend it to anyone who is writing, who wants a little inspiration. It was just a really great read. I loved his writing process. I felt like I wrote like him. I don't know if I think like him, but I felt like there were things that I do that he sort of validated for me, that were maybe a little different than most people tell you how you're supposed to write. So that was a great book, and I recommend it to anybody.
So all good writers have something in common.
I think so.
I think so.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Dina, for being here.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching Off the Shelf, Conversations with Authors. I'm Martha Kofod.